What if the most powerful thing you own right now is also the thing every bank, every government, and every tech company on earth is working overtime to make you throw away? Think about that for a second. They're not just building a cashless future because it is convenient. Convenience is the sales pitch. The real reason goes deeper, and it goes back further than you think. There is a war being fought over your wallet, and most people do not even know they are in it. By the end of this, you will understand why that wrinkled piece of paper in your back pocket is not just money. It is a shield, and they want it gone. Let's start with a feeling you already know. You are standing in a checkout line. Maybe it is a Tuesday. Nothing special about the day. You reach into your pocket, pull out some cash, and the cashier looks at you like you just handed them a clay tablet from ancient Babylon. There is a pause, a slight hesitation, maybe even a little smirk. And for just a moment, you feel it, that quiet social pressure, that unspoken message. What kind of person still uses cash? That feeling did not happen by accident. It was engineered. Over the last 2 decades, a very deliberate, very patient campaign has been waged to make cash feel old, feel dirty, feel like something only criminals and grandmothers use. The contactless payment revolution was sold to you as progress. Tap your card, tap your phone, tap your watch. Fast, clean, modern. And every single tap sends a signal to a database somewhere that knows exactly who you are, exactly where you are, and exactly what you just bought. Every single time. But here is the thing they never put in the advertisement. Every time you tap, you are not just paying for your coffee, you are paying with something else entirely. You are paying with a small piece of your financial independence, a small piece of your privacy, a small piece of the one thing that separates a free person from a managed person. And enough small pieces, taken over enough time, add up to something enormous. They add up to total control. This is the sovereignty trap, and almost everyone is already inside it. Now, to understand why cash matters so much, you have to understand what money actually is, not what they taught you in school, not the textbook definition. What it really is, at its core, underneath all the branding and the economics lectures and the glowing screens, money is a promise. That is it. A promise between people. I did something of value for you. You give me this token. Later, I can trade this token with someone else for something of value to me. The token itself, whether it is a gold coin, a paper bill, or a number on a screen, is just the vessel that carries the promise. What makes money powerful is not what it is made of. It is the trust behind it, the mutual agreement that this thing means something. For most of human history, that trust lived in the physical object. You could hold it, you could count it, you could bury it in your backyard if you did not trust the king. And that ability to hold your wealth in your own 2 hands, completely outside of any institution, any bank, any government's reach, that was not just a financial feature, it was a political one. It was the ultimate check on power. Because a government that cannot control your money cannot fully control you. The powerful have always known this, and they have always hated it. Go back to the 1930s. The world is burning. The Great Depression has swallowed everything. Banks are failing like dominoes. Unemployment in America has climbed to nearly 25%. People are not just broke. They are broken. Families are sleeping in their cars. Men who built factories with their hands are standing in bread lines, staring at the ground, waiting for a bowl of soup. And in the middle of this catastrophe, the United States government does something that, even now, decades later, still makes serious historians stop and stare. In 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt signs Executive Order 6102. It is a quiet order, almost bureaucratic in its language. But what it actually does is one of the most audacious seizures of private wealth in American history. It makes it illegal for ordinary American citizens to own gold. Not illegal to steal gold. Not illegal to sell stolen gold. Illegal to own it privately as your own property. You had a matter of weeks to turn in your gold coins, your gold bars, your gold certificates to the Federal Reserve. In exchange, you received paper dollars at a fixed rate of $20.67 per troy ounce. You had no choice in the matter. Refusal meant up to 10 years in federal prison and a fine of $10,000, which in 1933 was a sum that could buy you a house and a half. Once the government had collected the gold, once the private citizen was fully separated from the one asset that existed entirely outside the banking system, the government revalued gold overnight to $35 per ounce. The citizens who had been forced to hand it in at $20 were instantly, legally, robbed of the difference. Billions of dollars in real wealth transferred from ordinary people to the government in a single stroke of a pen. Now, sit with that story for a moment, because it is not ancient history. It is a blueprint. The men who designed that policy were not evil in the cartoonish sense. They were pragmatists. They believed, perhaps genuinely, that controlling the money was necessary to save the economy. But the mechanism they used, the technique of making private financial independence illegal, of forcing citizens into a system they controlled completely, that technique did not die with the New Deal. It went to sleep. It waited. And now, in the age of digital payments and central bank digital currencies and algorithmic financial surveillance, it is waking up again, wearing a different suit, carrying a different briefcase, but with the exact same eyes. The 1950s give us the second chapter of the story. The war is over. America is booming. The suburbs are being built. The television is in the living room. And something remarkable is happening inside the boardrooms of the great American banks. They have a problem, a surprisingly simple problem. People are saving too much. This is not a joke. To the financial industry of the post-war era, the habit of the American working class, keeping cash at home, paying for things with actual money, staying out of debt, this was not a virtue. It was an obstacle. Because a person who does not borrow money is a person the bank cannot profit from. A person who pays cash for everything is a person who exists, financially speaking, almost entirely outside the system. And a person outside the system cannot be tracked, cannot be leveraged, and most importantly, cannot be charged interest. The credit card was born in 1958. Diners Club had introduced a charge card a few years earlier, but it was Bank AmeriCard, later to become Visa, that cracked the code on mass adoption. And the way they launched it tells you everything about the mentality behind it. They did not wait for people to apply. They did not build a product and let the market decide. They mailed unsolicited credit cards to 60,000 residents of Fresno, California. 60,000 people who never asked for them, never wanted them, just opened their mailbox one morning and found a little plastic rectangle that said, in effect, you can have things now and pay later. They called it the Fresno Drop, and it worked. Within months, the model was spreading to other cities. Within years, it had changed the financial DNA of the American consumer. The culture of saving of living within your means, of the cash economy that had defined working-class life for generations, it did not die overnight, but it started dying that day in Fresno, slowly, quietly, replaced by something that felt like freedom but was actually a very elegant, very profitable cage. Because here's what a credit card actually is. Underneath the rewards points and the cashback offers and the sleek metal finish, it is a loan you did not formally ask for. A loan with an interest rate that, in the modern era, can climb past 20% annually. A loan that is, by design, structured to be almost impossible to fully pay off if you carry a balance, because the minimum payment is calculated to keep you in debt for as long as mathematically possible. The credit card is not a convenience product. It is an extraction product. And the cash it replaced was not just a payment method. It was a discipline, a boundary, a physical representation of the simple truth that when the wallet is empty, you stop spending. Cash imposes limits. And limits, the financial industry learned, are the enemy of profit. Now we arrive at the present. And the present is where the story gets darkest. The war on cash is no longer subtle. It is not a quiet cultural pressure or a slick marketing campaign, though those still exist. It is now an explicit policy goal, discussed openly in the white papers of central banks, in the testimony of finance ministers, in the conference rooms of the World Economic Forum. The stated reasons are always noble: fighting tax evasion, stopping money laundering, modernizing the economy, reducing friction. The reasons are always noble because noble reasons are the ones people accept without asking too many questions. But underneath the noble reasons, there is a machinery being built. And when you understand what the machinery does, the noble reasons start to look very thin. Central bank digital currencies, which the financial world calls CBDCs by their initials, are the endgame of this war. More than 100 countries are currently developing or testing them. China has already launched the digital yuan and used it on tens of millions of citizens. The European Central Bank is deep in the development phase of the digital euro. The United States Federal Reserve has been studying a digital dollar for years. This is not a French conspiracy. This is publicly documented policy, funded by governments, staffed by thousands of economists and engineers and lawyers. Here is what a CBDC is, in plain language. It is digital money that is issued directly by the central bank, not by a commercial bank. It lives on a government-controlled ledger. Every transaction, every transfer, every purchase you make with it is recorded in real time by the issuing authority. There is no commercial bank in the middle. There is no intermediary who might push back on government requests for your financial data. It is a direct, a mediated wire between your wallet and the state. And here's the feature they talk about quietly, in the technical papers, in the footnotes of the policy documents: programmability. A programmable currency can be given rules. A programmable currency can be told, by whoever controls the system, that it can only be spent at certain places, on certain things, within a certain time window. Imagine a government that decides, during a crisis, real or manufactured, that citizens should spend their money immediately to stimulate the economy. A programmable CBDC can be given an expiry date. Use it by this Friday or it disappears. Imagine a government that decides certain purchases are socially undesirable. A programmable CBDC can simply refuse to complete those transactions. Your money, in your account, with your name on it, simply will not work for the things they have decided you should not have. And the terrifying part is not that this is theoretical. The terrifying part is that every single technical component required to do exactly this already exists. The infrastructure is being built right now. Not as a possibility, as a plan. Cash cannot be programmed. This is the fundamental truth at the heart of the sovereignty strategy. A $20 bill does not know what day it is. It does not know who is spending it. It does not know what it is being spent on. It does not expire. It does not require internet connectivity. It does not require a functioning banking system. It does not require the approval of any algorithm, any government database, any credit score, any identity verification system. You can put it in a jar and bury it in the ground and dig it up 10 years later, and it still works. In a world that is racing deliberately and systematically toward total financial surveillance and programmable control, that dumb, simple, beautiful ignorance is not a flaw. It is the whole point. Cash is the only financial instrument that preserves the oldest, most fundamental economic right a human being has ever had. The right to transact privately, to exchange value with another person without asking anyone's permission, without being watched, without being recorded, without being judged by a system that can change its rules about what you are allowed to do with your own money at any time for any reason. Every civilization that has been brought to its knees economically, look at Weimar Germany in the early 1920s, look at Zimbabwe in the 2000s, look at Venezuela in the 2010s, look at Lebanon right now, has followed a pattern. The government loses control of the economy. The official financial system becomes unstable or corrupt. And the people who survive, not just financially but as independent human beings capable of feeding their families and maintaining their dignity, are the ones who had something outside the official system, something they could hold, something that could not be frozen, seized, or zeroed out by a government keystroke. This is not prepper fantasy. This is recorded history, repeating itself across cultures and centuries with a consistency that should terrify anyone paying attention. So, what does the sovereignty strategy actually look like? Not in theory, in your actual life. It starts with a simple, almost radical act. You go to the ATM. You take out cash. Not a little. Enough to matter. Enough that if your bank account were frozen tomorrow, your debit card declined, your phone payment app shut down, you could still buy food, still buy fuel, still function as a human being for a meaningful period of time. Financial advisors used to call this an emergency fund. What they meant, even if they did not say it in these words, was a buffer of independence. A zone of your life where the system has no reach. The number matters less than the habit. Some people keep 2 weeks of essential expenses in cash at home. Some people keep a month. Some people, the ones who have lived through a serious financial crisis, or who have read enough history to take it seriously, keep 3 months. The specific number is a personal calculation based on your situation. What is not personal, what is universal, is the principle behind it. You need some portion of your financial life to exist completely outside the digital system, not because you are a criminal, not because you are paranoid, but because you are a person, and persons have always needed the ability to act independently when institutions fail them. The second piece of the strategy is behavioral. Start using cash for your daily spending, not for everything, not in a way that makes your life impractical, but deliberately, consciously, regularly. Pay for your groceries in cash. Pay for your lunch in cash. Pay for the small repeated purchases that currently flow through your card and your phone and generate an unbroken stream of data about your habits, your preferences, your vulnerabilities, your routine. Do this not just for the privacy benefit, though that benefit is real and significant. Do it because of what it does to your psychology. Spending cash feels different from tapping a card. There is a friction there, a physical reality to the transaction. When you hand over a 20 and get back some coins, your brain registers the exchange in a way that a contactless tap never triggers. Studies consistently show that people who spend primarily in cash spend less overall. Not because cash is magic, because physical money makes the cost of things real in a way that digital payments are specifically designed to prevent. The frictionlessness of digital payment is not an accident. It is a feature, designed to make you spend more, designed to keep you in the cycle. Cash breaks the cycle. The third piece is philosophical. And this is the hardest one, because it requires you to look at the story you have been told about progress and convenience and modernity and decide how much of it you actually believe. The future they are selling you, the fully digital, fully tracked, fully convenient financial life where you never have to touch a dirty piece of paper again, is being sold as liberation, as the final shedding of an outdated system, and in some narrow, technical sense, it is more efficient. But efficiency has never been the whole story of freedom. Freedom has always required some inefficiency, some friction, some space between you and whoever holds power over your life. A man who owns his house outright, with a deed in his hand, is less efficient than a man who rents. He has locked up capital. He has taken on maintenance. He has traded flexibility for permanence. But he also cannot be evicted. He cannot have his rent raised by 50% next month. He has accepted the inefficiency in exchange for the security. This is not stupidity. This is a rational trade made by someone who understands that convenience and security are not the same thing, and that the entity offering you the convenience is not always working in your interest. The sovereignty strategy is the same trade. Accept a little friction. Carry a little cash. Maintain a small island of financial life that no server, no database, no government algorithm can reach. Not because you are against progress, but because you understand the way people who have lived through the worst of history always understand that the institutions which hold your money also hold a measure of your freedom. And the only hedge against the failure of institutions, the only one that has ever worked across every culture and every century and every flavor of economic collapse that history has served up, is the same one it has always been. Something you can hold in your hand, something that is yours, something that works when everything else stops. The last line of defense is not a strategy. It is not a portfolio. It is not a hedge fund or a blockchain or a government promise. It is a wrinkled piece of paper in your pocket that asks nothing from you, reports to no one, and says simply and defiantly that you were here, that you acted freely, and that no one had to give you permission. That is what they want to take from you, and now you know why.